What we're going to do here is very interactive. We want you to ask questions as we go through. The part I've got to start with can be kind of a nuts and bolts, boring presentation. When we get that over with, then we got our really outstanding speakers in the afternoon. So just getting you a heads up about software. One of the things we do every year, we release a new version. We do updates continuously, the internet, but we do some major versions. And so what we do at this, one of the things we do at this conference, we summarize what we've done and what we're going to do. So you can say, well, I mean, that's in the program. I missed that all these years. And that's a benefit of coming here to this meeting, because I've been to many of your operations. We talked on the phone, but that's a very short time window, and there's obviously things you miss. So let's get started now. Our new version changes are 10.3 and 8.14. That'll be coming out this fall. And is anybody running version 10 right now? Okay. We're moving that direction. We introduced it before 64-bit computers were widely available, and it was not a performer on it takes quite a bit of memory to run it, but it's the direction we're going. So we're continuing to maintain two versions. We're eventually going to put this one out to pasture and switch over to 10.3. It's a .NET format. It connects with any kind of database, SQL, Oracle, anything like that. So if you need more capabilities. And one thing it doesn't have lifecycle budget, which is we've been waiting on that. Hopefully we'll have that going here in the next year. But otherwise, it has all the modules available. It just is not widely used yet, and we haven't encouraged people to adopt it yet. But we've already written it and made and want the transition in that direction. So when you install, you have option which version you use, and the 8 is the old standby. For most people, that's more than adequate for what you need. This is something we brought out last year, but it's also something that a lot of people miss. And this is if you and it's only in the version 8 series. How many of you have never docked the form or on FBS? You ever users? How many of you have? You know how that works. So, technical support, a few. So this is under the main menu. There's a Windows option and there's dock forms. And when you do that, it opens tabs like Excel, where you can drag and drop different applications or instances of FBS out on this form like this, and then just click between these. So you can have a bunch of applications open at the same time without having to cover one up and hunt around and go down to the bottom of the screen to find them. So especially if you've got one monitor, it's a very handy way to view things. If you use a dual monitor, sometimes it's easier to drag something over to the other monitor. How many of you have used dual monitors? Okay, it's a great way of increasing your effectiveness, and you can have your Excel spreadsheet open to one monitor and FBS to the other, and you can hop around. It's very hard, real sacrifice to run on a single monitor. Yes, Sarah?
I was going to add, the dock form is really handy to run on the terminal server because you don't have dual monitors in your terminal server environment. So this kind of helps you do what you can do on two monitors, even if you're only have the space of one. It helps a lot in that kind of environment.
Okay, so those who are in the Ag Compass server, then this is your alternative for really easy multitasking in FBS. Okay, so now we're getting to some of the new things we've added. And if you go to the main screen, file selection screen, we've added a couple buttons to save data and fix data. Sarah, can you give us the background on why we did that?
No, I don't know why it was added.
So people came in, they couldn't get into the program. It needed to do data recovery, and of course they couldn't load the data file to do data recovery. It was a circular situation. So it gives you an opportunity to make a backup before you even go into the program, or to run data recovery if there's a problem.
Is there any fear of loss of data when you're doing this? Is there any fear of losing any data while it's fixing it?
It should make no difference which way you do it if we have a fixed data, but generally what that does is re-indexes and builds it's not a severe so if you had a rare situation where you had a problem, this is the best solution. Okay, so a lot of what we do now is controlled by preferences. And back in the DOS days, we would start writing custom versions of our program for different people. They wanted the columns and report to be in reverse date order or something like that. Well, they wanted checks. They wanted all their deposits cleared without having to go in and re-clear them. So preference section is under utilities, and it allows you to really customize a program. Now, when we start people out, we really we don't take them too far into this because we don't want to give you too many, confuse you with too many options. But if there's something that you don't like about the program, or there's a annoying tendency in the program, chances are there's a preference for offsetting that. Now, a few years ago, we had people who would go in at the end of the year and or beginning of the year, and they record a bunch of entries to the prior year. So they forgot to switch their years when they went in. So we put a little pop-up that says, you've logged into 2012, don't you want to log into 2013? And we got a preference now to shut that off. Somebody didn't like that little safety message. So those are the kind of things we do. Well, anyway, the preferences we've added a warning here to prevent you from remove the warning that says I'm putting in a duplicate invoice number. I mean, we're trying to protect you by warning you, but somebody, maybe they're in here, said, I don't want that warning that I'm using a duplicate number, so you can defeat that. And there's also consolidated cost analysis, which Sarah will be covering tomorrow, but there's times in consolidated cost analysis you want to force in a quantity into the report that's not really intrinsic to crop production or livestock production. In other words, you're not picking up a quantity for that number. You want to track. You want to do a report like miles the trucks have run or something like that. So this allows it to pick up a quantity in the consolidated cost analysis. Anyway, these are all under the preferences. There's another one, valuation logic, which is something we did for one of our customers right here in this room. And typically, evaluation logic, and these are crop and feeding related with material. The ingredient summary, the input, crop input reports. When we in the inventory evaluation, when it runs through the program, what it does, and it's expecting that you aren't running negative inventories. But theoretically, if you're accrual accounting, you should never be running negative inventory. It's not possible. Can't, we wouldn't need to buy anything if you could make that work. Well, what our logic was, if it wasn't negative at the end of the month, we'd look ahead to the next month and pick up purchases. Well, we had situations where you're trying to close out a particular time period and you didn't have those purchases booked. It created an issue. So this is, again, most people are happy with the way things are, but this basically says I'm going to stop at the end of the month, and I'm going to assume that my purchases are true at the end of the month and are accurate, and I'm not going to look ahead to the next month for purchases. Very obscure, but very important capabilities, and it's in the system. Any questions? Okay, there's some multi-company preferences, and we've increased the limit to 20 company files right now. So, and John McNutt's going to be presenting this afternoon about doing accounting with multi-entity businesses. And apparently, when we start on these projects, we say, well, how many, what do you think the limit should be? Oh, nobody's got more than 10 companies that are tracking their operation. Well, lo and behold, somebody comes along with 20 or 18 or something like that. So we bumped that up, and that just basically allows in our multi-farm preferences you can have this. Basically, this is saying I'm pushing my cost centers to these companies from the main company, and I'm pushing my ledger accounts over to these companies, and it just allows you to have more and more companies that are daughter companies of the main company. And the contract module, we've added a contract description to the recap. Contract module integrates with accounting and with crops and with feeding and ingredients, and basically gets all the details on the contracts. We'll be talking a little bit about this on tomorrow at the hedging breakout session. But
Now, another thing that's going to be covered tomorrow is, in a little more depth, is credit card setups. We've added more capabilities. So we actually have, in a transaction, you can have two vendors. So I'm creating accounts payable. This one here is the actual accounts payable is the Citi card, but the actual vendor was Casey's. So I can track in some of my reports who the AP is to, which is correct to the credit card company, but also I'm going to go back and recount which vendors I paid through that credit card. And that's basically, you go to the vendor setup and you flag them as a credit card vendor. Any questions? We'll cover that tomorrow with more examples. Okay, so we've got we increased the description file limit from 3,000 to 5,000. A description file is a ledger account that builds a pick list. It's really handy for like parts and supplies that aren't things that you're not really probably aren't going to do a special inventory, but it's something that you want a pick list, make it easy and consistent as you're recording. So that's taken out to 5,000. Again, apparently 3,000 sounds like a lot. 5,000. I'll be here next year saying we're taking up to 10,000. It's as we find out. We've now able to press F11 when we're in the input screen. It will display had a pop-up display the vendor address, and I think that's the reason they did that was you've got two vendors that are very similar. Maybe it's a branch or something. You want to say which vendor is this? They'll bring that back. We've also, when printing reversing entries, and this is something that some people do, is as they're recording entries and accounting, there's a print button. You can print that entry, and if you're trying to build a history trail on that, and this identifies it was a reversing entry on that screen, and then we can toggle the scanner from the input screen. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock, Sarah and Cheryl are doing the 21st Century Office, and they'll be covering, actually doing live demos of the scanner interface. You can see how to connect and transactions with scanned documents and how to do the paper flow with that. So we're trying to build that into the system. We've done about 3 or 4 passes at this, trying to figure out what the smoothest way of interfacing with technology. Any questions? Go ahead. Okay, the check clearing. Some of you got stung by this, and I apologize for that. That happened 2 or 3 weeks ago. We put in this warning that say the date you could not clear a check before the date of the check, which somebody had asked us to do. That made sense. It was unintentional. Warning. Well, that broke something else when we did that, and we had it fixed within a couple of days. But it did show up, and so this is just another one of these things. If we were really smart, we would have put all these warnings and thought about all this when we first started, but we're letting you determine what all the different ways that you can misuse the program, or it's like when I was a kid, we didn't even think about seat belts in cars, and now we wouldn't dare put a kid in the front seat because of the airbag. I mean, it's totally. When I was growing up, the kids would sleep on the baggage shelf in the back of the car. Apparently, there wasn't anything to worry about. But anyway, we're trying to protect you here. Okay, so there's different vetted a whole bunch of new check invoice printing options, and these are basically ways of designing your check stubs. And some people want to see the original transaction, the original account. Some people want to see invoice numbers, and these are different ways in the check editor. We just call these line types, and it automatically distributes these accounts, these definitions across your check form. So chances are, if you're used to using a certain format, or you think you'd like to add a certain format, we probably have it in our library of things to do that you can do. So,
I recently added that page to the website.
Oh, we did. Okay.
So Sarah can look at it.
Okay, great. So it's yeah. So this is the training, or where is this?
It's under resources and maybe forms. And it's just the cheat sheet of what all the lines are and what way it'll give each line that you select.
Okay, resources, forms, and so
yeah.
Okay, great.
I know it's under resources. I'm just not.
All right, well, we can bring it up on the screen here. Get done. They'll find it. By the way, there's something I was going to mention. I just totally forgot. The presentations that you're seeing, you've got a copy of the presentation, of this presentation, with you. Everything else is going to be on our website that we can share. So the next presentation is it's all under our homepage, FBSsystems.com, archives, presentations, and then the menu option is 2013 User Conference. And there's two presentations. This presentation and the next one are already on there, and we'll have the rest of them up by tomorrow for all the other presentations. So rather than having a big thick handout, especially with breakout sessions, we we maintain resources. You actually find presentations from at least 2 other web user conferences. They're still on the website, so a lot of resource material that's already up there. Okay, and in AR AP reports, remember we had the credit card, we had a credit card vendor. We included the actual vendor. So here's Discover Card vendor, but description the payee was Netflix. We trap payments with wrong signs and invoice with payment records will give you a warning that you flip the sign around on the transaction. Okay, now switching to crop audit. One of the things that we've done is this happens not infrequently with operations that, in this example, they planted corn with the intention of corn for grain, but they decided to cut for silage. In other words, you change the center, the crop in the middle of the season, or you've done a cutting of hay, or some you pulled off straw, or something is a little unusual. So what this does, this is under the crop setup, input project transfers. And when we say project transfers, what projects is a term we use with the management accounting and CLIPS management accounting. We have, just like we have groups with livestock, we have projects with crops, which identify a particular field and a crop center. So that what this is doing in this example, in 8.23, they went ahead and took the center was corn 2013. It was in that field, and they're going to take 35.4 acres of that and harvest and switch it to silage. So they're what that is doing is it pulling off a percentage of the cost for the field corn into silage. Again, this is only relevant if you're doing managerial accounting, because what we're trying to do is proportion out the cost that you've accumulated so far now to a different project. So it transfers cost by acres and project acres. So when you start a project, you say, I'm going to have 80 acres, and so it's thinking that's the divisor, that's the units. I have 80 acres divided into the costs accumulated. If I pull off a portion of them, 34.5, it takes that percentage of those costs and moves them to the next center.
No.
Yes.
So it goes back to the beginning of that project and transfers that percentage of cost to the new.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the month, at the end of the month, it says I've got this much build up in that in August. I got this much build up. Now I've peeled off, sliced off this much, and it's gone to the next this other project. Yes, Rob.
In the event you had replant in a field and compound expenses on one quadrant of your bean acres.
That's a real interesting situation. So, do you want to? You think it's appropriate to compound the double your crop expense in that field, or write off that to the original planning to something else, or what would you do in that situation? What would anybody else do? I'm kind of that's a great question.
I think when you're looking at your total expenses for, let's say, the inputs for beans, this happened to be a bean field we did this year. It's unfair to the total acres when you just replanted 160, and that cost is, like I say, compounded. But that ought to be noted, or something from an analytical standpoint. Your average cost is it's incorporated with the average cost, but without a replant, your average cost is a different number.
Right. So, you economists or CPAs, consultants, how do you look at replanning? Is that something that needs to be rolled into the?
Just to throw into this, then our insurers basically repaid for that cost, so that's additional income, and that tracks, so that offsets it maybe. But I didn't.
Right. In that case, you would just offset it. It would net it out. If your insurance wasn't paying for that, then that becomes more problematic. You would spread that. It eventually gets spread out the entire crop, but
no, I know how it looks. So, I mean, when you're really looking at average cost, sometimes you realize that, well, instead of having 2,000 acres of beans, you had 2,160 or 2,160.
Yeah, you don't want to count the acre. You don't want to count the planting acres twice.
So then how's your harvest is at 160?
Yeah.
Where'd they go?
Yeah.
No.
That's a great and relevant question. That's so. Fortunately, insurance is paying, so it all nets out, and we would like to run that through. We don't like to show that. Of course, this is just a lot of this is a reporting construct. How you want to view things, whether you want to net it out, I want to show it as a separate line item, and my preference is always to try to net those out to the original account, so we don't overstate one side and I've got this insurance payment that really is just kind of hanging out there. We want to get that, this is how you want to view things. What's meaningful to you? Any other comments on that? Suggestions on? Insurance is when you receiving a payment. And it comes into the next year, and you don't know what it is. It's like RIP. You don't know what that's going to be, and you're trying to close out your year. It's a tough one to match up. We'll may cover that. Our management accounting breakout tomorrow. Okay, this one here is really, really handy, and I don't know how. If you're not using this right now. Here's a scenario. Of course, any good producer is planning for next year, the fall, and he said, we're going to plant this many acres, and it's going to go in this specific field. And you go ahead and do some plot on fertilizer, accumulate some costs, and then you get into the spring and you start swapping fields around. And what this does, this is Eclipse only, but you have the projects, and you can move project your corn project over to a bean project for that field, and it goes back and it finds all the entries that were made to that field, that project, flips them over to the new project. You have to create a new project, but it'll move them. And it's a batch system, so you go through the list, and one set of entries that goes makes those changes. Now your balance sheet's going to stay the same. It's the working process slash investment growing crops on the balance sheet is going to be the same, but now it's flagged to a different project. So if you go back a couple of years, you may want to recalculate and roll things forward, but the total balance sheet is going to be the same. If you were not going to do that, you're still correct, and it tracks the costs through the because it's assigned to these new projects, and that is. Only other solution for this was to go back in and find those entries, find all the entries, and flip them over to another project. Have any of you used this function yet?
Isn't that something for him with the insurance?
If he switched crops, I mean that's the whole point of this.
He's now got a crop called insurance.
A crop called insurance. Yeah. Yeah. We had a conversation earlier today about farming for insurance, and I understand there's some parts of the country have got that one figured out. Okay, here's the Mach 2 interface. Brett and Doug and John Witter from River Valley will be really getting the nuts and bolts of importing from various sources. But we've updated in a process of continuously updating this function with more and more interfaces with other people's software. In this case, SMS, Apex, SST, anything can export into a CSV file, and so that'll be covered in depth tomorrow about what's out there, what you can use, what we can pull in, what to deal with, how do you deal with tank mixes, what's the information, what's in the data file, are they giving the total individual products, or are they giving you total rate applied for the tank mix? It's obviously not standardized, and we've had to write reverse engineer a lot of code that pulls that in. Okay, this is in crop audit general. We've modified the shrink table to, and you can use 3 or 4 different calculations, shrink table factors, calculations. We've gone to a shrink. We modified the table to default to standard shrink if the shrink factor is 0. I get up to here at 15. And Sarah, have you done any work with that part of the? Are you aware of what Ross instigated that? Okay. We implemented fuel used in cost analysis. There's a new line type. In this case, you want to track on individual fuel by field or crop or crop. Smart feeder. We've taken the forced in the quantity, forced in the dosage. That was something that if you put in didn't put in a quantity number head in, said I use this many units, it would try to assign it all to single head. I mean, the dollars the quantity used would be right, but the number of head was being calculated. So here we've made that a little more, we think, a little more user friendly. And it's done a lot of things with batch feeding. And batch feeding is something that is obviously common with feeding cattle, but also is in some situations with mixing up feed in a feed mill. And what we can do is we can display with batch feeding. You mix up feed and then you dispense it to a particular group. So when that feed is mixed up, it's sort of in limbo. The system still thinks it's in inventory as individual ingredients, but it's actually in this temporary file. It says, I've got this much of these rations in inventory, and that in those rations I got this much of each ingredient. And to monitor and adjust, it's important to be able to look at this and see what you actually have in inventory. We very much recommend doing a physical inventory count on a very frequent basis. In this case, if you got a system like this, you probably want to be looking at weekly, at the very least monthly, and those of you who have cropping operation, this is the time of year to zero out your inputs, your input inventories, get them all adjusted and matched up. So at some point, and this is like a financial statement, you don't throw a dart at the calendar and pick any day of the year to do this. You want to have this on a real clean cutoff date, and in this case, this is looking at something very, very dynamic and changing, and this is something to be done. This is a point-in-time report. You can't go back and run it for July 31st because the feed has been dispensed. But it's just another way of doing a snapshot, seeing what's going on in the system. We've also put in ingredient shrinkage. Now, there's two ways of dealing with variance on feed. The traditional way we had, and we have this in the crops as well as crop inputs as well as feed ingredients, is you do a global adjustment, which says I'm going to take the difference between what the system says I have in inventory and what physically what I've got, and it's going to spread the difference out across fields or across groups over the time period. So I'm getting, the end result is I get my computer inventory to match my physical inventory by adjusting the applications of that, which from a feed conversion standpoint means that my cost of gain is the same, but my pounds of feed per head now go up. So I may have, if that was the case, if the feed was delivered to the barn and I got my own feed mill and things don't tie out, then maybe that's appropriate. But another way of looking at it, though, is this was a shrink that came in before the feed was manufactured. And so while my dollars are the same, now my quantity of feed that's fed is different. So what this does, you pick a time period, the end of the month, and you report what is in inventory, and you say I want to apply a shrink. You may do a standard shrink, and this loads all the usages and purchases, and it adjusts the quantity used by whatever percentage you put into this factor. It does it by creating an entry in Smart Feeder called a by ingredient entry that says there's an ingredient and I've dropped it by that many pounds, I think, in that situation. But it's not doing anything to the dollars. All it does is just creates a record. It says that I've adjusted. Now the effect on that is I've raised my unit cost for that feed because I've factored in that price, and I've spread that out. I've raised my cost of gain slightly, but I have not skewed my feed conversion or my pounds of feed consumed. Now, how many of you have never had any kind of a variance in your inventories? Yeah, very good, very good.
That's there, it's always there.
Yeah. And inventory control is the number one most frustrating thing that we deal with, and we think it's what you deal with, because people it's always right are the ones that never check. I mean, it's something it's constantly. There's two ways to correct it. One is to fix it and say we'll just constantly fix it and adjust it. The other is to fix it but keep a record of what the variance was. And in this case, you are keeping a record of what the variance is. You can get reports about how much has been changed and netted out, so you can monitor that and see what's going on between actual and budget. We don't have Eric Jackson yet from Conservice, do we? Okay, he's going to be speaking this afternoon, and I think that's intriguing. Conservice allows you to collect. It's a mobile cloud-based inventory control system, crops system, and what they are collecting and what goes in the FBS and what's actual. It could be the same thing, or we can maintain two different views of our inventory control. Last year, we had a speaker, a controller, operating cropping operation in Ohio, Andrea Butterball, and they had some clean breaks in their purchasing for their operation. Purchase inputs into one entity, and then it would charge out to the other entities. And I believe they were really trying to maintain whatever they reported they used didn't have to tie out with what they purchased. They maintain that as a variance for tracking. So there's a whole bunch of different philosophies on how to get things to match up. I suggest that probably it may not be the first thing you want to do, but if you got a good handle on inventories, you may want to be tracking the variances. What's taken, what you purchased, what you took out of the field, what you actually planted, what the monitor said you planted, and those are three different steps. And if you've got a lot of people involved, a lot of details, it may be something that you want to be tracking. So this is a way of solving a very automated way. This is right in Smart Feeder to just force in a shrink. And if you have your own feed mill, and do that on a monthly basis, and of course you got to be doing physical inventories to tie things out. Okay, this is something that it's again a work in process for us, but we think it's pretty useful. This is a work schedule for in Smart Feeder by group, a group work schedule. So these days, you build this, you say these are the days on feed and what I want to have happen at these particular points in time. And these are tasks that aren't necessarily related to feeding. They start at 4, they start at 5, check generator. So you can run this from your desktop, and you bring up the screen and you click on a completed, and this shows a running inventory. Or you can run it. You can run it on a. This is a report. You can run it on a mobile device. Now it is not an app, so you got to log in through a remote desktop. Or log me in or something like that, but we tried to design this so it fits the space that you have on a mobile device. Probably an iPhone or a smaller Android would be the hardest thing to make this work on. But we've used it, tested it on an iPhone. Works even better on a tablet that's got a little more room. But you basically just tap on the completed and it says completed. It's a record. You log in by sight, so it's you don't have to move around the screen. So you say I'm now at this site and I'm going to tap on these different activities. And it has a running inventory. It shows you what's in place. You can also go in and do ad hoc entries. So it shows the site you're at, put in the net loss, and it's just a little window that you log in remotely, separately from the main FBS login. So I can do net loss and just any kind of entries from here. It's ideally, everybody be running off the cloud, and this would be but if you're running locally, you can make this work just with log me in or some type of. That's probably the simplest solution. If you're using multi-user, you probably want to use remote desktop. And we're still tweaking with that. I've got one of our. I don't see Marcia here. She'll be here later, I think. But we're working on maybe making this even more, adding more functionality, like looking at contracted replacement gilts or something that you, so tying us back to the contract module, doing some other things to do interactive inventory control. And we've added some new updates to our Packer interface, Triumph and Hormel. Smithfield is coming. They've had an export out. How many? You got any? We have any Smithfield farmland? John Morrell. Okay. What's they actually have added that. It's taken a long time. So Smithfield purchased farmland. They stopped doing any kind of exporting of information. Now they're starting to bring it back in. It's not adequate yet because it doesn't tie out to the check. And because we are an accounting program, just getting a rough idea about how those animals did is not the same as it's tying out to the deposit. So hopefully they're going to have the things done soon. Okay, female interface. We've added a few more options. We can import from QuickBooks. There are something like 23, 24 different feed mill formats that we're working with. They're all different, and they never call us when they change. We get called by the user. Things don't quite work, but it's great advantage. These are some more things we've added on feed sales. We've added that, and that's in the commercial feed mill screen. There's an option for doing feed sales. So and that's basically tying out with Feed Office Pro or some other system that's generating the feed sales. We've got this new adaptation to our feed invoicing program. We've got a couple of people using this, and this is for if you want to use FBS to invoice sales of feed to another entity, and you don't have already using Feed Office Pro, Feed Mill Manager, or some of those programs that do that, it'll do markup on feed. It'll sell it. One of the things we've just added is we'll add freight to this tied to a location. So the theory here is it's going to do choose cost or markup on ingredients. You can use a standard grind, mix, and deliver per ton charge calculation, and you can also we can just add. You can say I'm going to have a freight charge, so I'm going extra distance I can have different charges, fixed charges per location I deliver it to. So it's gives you more control and more accuracy. We've done some changes to Smart Feeder Report. Average daily gain of 3 decimal points. Let's see, the ingredient summary can now include buy and dispense. The input history report, which was just a time-based report, now can do by groups and closed groups. That's one of the projects we did for the landfill full value pig model, and be able to run reports that extract death loss histories and detail, do it by group. And tomorrow, those of you sitting in on that presentation will see the end result of the analysis and design ways of extracting that. We also added a multi-farm option to these reports. A multi-farm option allows you to consolidate across multiple FBS data files. So there's like 5 or 6 reports now, counting, and others that you can run across data files. And we have a new user-defined logic, calculate that divides the 4 decimal places. We can do math with dates now. You can get number of days since Paline started, or days that are on feed after Paline, if you pick those dates. And an inventory valuation. This is something we haven't released this yet. We're testing it, but I think I told you, Jenny, didn't you?
Yeah, really excited.
Yeah, real excited. Okay, Jody, we can now back up and restore by month in inventory valuation, and that's for feeding. And for those, not all of you doing hard closes at the end of the month. People who are, it's a big deal if you just need to jump back one month, or you accidentally go forward and you didn't want to do that. So this has restore points every month. You can go back and you don't have to wait and jump back a whole year. And that's controlled by a preference. And then we've done some things on equivalent unit, beginning and ending equivalent units to help document in the inventory valuation current detail report. Be able to track. This is for breeding herds, showing what's changed. A little easier tie out. And then we've also done something that I know I've worked with a couple of Brian and Jenny. I think both of you've got cattle, and the question is, do we? We've had 2 categories here for raised and purchased, and you have to be really careful when you're getting set up. And it's if you start up a group, a center that's actually raised, but you get the beginning balance of purchase. It wasn't recognizing it needed to change it. Plus, what we decided is that there's some of our customers do want 2 lines on the balance sheet, one for cattle, one for hogs, or whatever it is that they raise. So now this becomes a user-defined line that is what says purchased. You say, I want this line to be whip hogs, the other line to be whip cattle, and so you can show 2 lines on your ledger accounts and balance sheets by setting it up. So it overrides the purchase logic and just gives you a little more control. That makes sense. And last thing is we'll show you a few screens tomorrow. This has taken a long time to get accomplished, and I think it's good. But it's been a couple of years. Red Wing has been working on a new depreciation module. I think they developed it for farm credit, and they've run a lot of iterations through, and it's going to be a pretty good, solid program. So Red Wing is where we go to for payroll. So we'll develop interfaces that link with this as well. Hopefully, we can be able to tie back to our asset register, so it's one comprehensive look at what's going on. But there are good asset depreciation programs that are very pricey. There are a lot of inexpensive ones that don't do the partial sale of assets and all the things that are kind of just pretty specialized agriculture. So hopefully, with the next year, we'll have, maybe even by the end of the year, they'll have an interface put in place, and we'll offer that. And I think that's
what was our last point?
What's that?
Interface, next year, okay.
Testing this year, yeah. So, any questions over what we covered? Yes, Lance.
This is just an accounting question. The fixed asset program that Red Wing's going to do, will it track by state, by book, by cost?
It has multi schedules.
So you can carry 4 or 5 schedules.
Oh yeah, more than 4 or 5 schedules. Yeah, a lot of concurrent, of course, management, and as you get into state appreciation, it's a full capability program. Any questions?